All right, what's going on, guys? So in this video, we're going to talk about how to break through a strength plateau and always maintain consistent workouts to the point where you're consistently gaining strength and you're not having these inconsistent workouts where you're taking 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, and that's a frustrating place to be. This video is going to solve that for you. So the first thing you need to understand is that strength gains, the progression in your training is how you need to judge the success of your training routine. So if you're not gaining strength in any of your exercises, then you need to take a couple steps back and look at the overall structure of your training. Chances are you're probably doing too much. You're probably doing too much volume, too many exercises, and training too often. So first, you need to look at that and understand that strength gains are the most important, which is why it's really important that if you are not gaining strength, you have to get that going if you want to build significant amounts of muscle mass. Second thing to note is that outside of the beginner stage of lifting, progress is actually quite slow. So if you guys are expecting to just put on 5 pounds on all of your big compound lifts every week for the rest of your training career, that's not going to happen, quite frankly. We'd all be walking around benching like 600 pounds if that was a possibility, which it's not. So you need to understand that outside of the first, 6 months of your training when you're a true beginner, progress is going to be quite slow. So I'm going to recommend to you guys that something that's helped me incredibly, especially with upper body movements like bench pressing and overhead pressing, invest in some micro plates. So micro plates are the little 1/2 pound, 1 pound plates that allow you to add weight in smaller increments instead of adding 5 pounds per workout, which after a certain point is just not feasible. So invest in some micro plates. That's one of the best things you can do, because your body, once you're outside of the beginner stage, guys, your body's not gonna be able to adapt to 5 pound jumps every week. That's just fucking ridiculous. The body takes time to adapt. So understand that, micro plates are going to be one of the biggest keys in order to avoid strength plateaus and make your workouts more consistent. So that's one of the first things I would say. And then the next thing, and this is what's going to solve most of your problems. I'm going to get into some advanced tactics and things that are going to help you make consistent gains, but here are the things that I see most often. So people ask me, I've hit a plateau on my bench press, my overhead press, I'm not gaining strength, because the upper body lifts are going to take a lot longer than, squats and deadlifts. That's just the fact of the matter. That's how things work. So understand that that's going to take more time. The bench press and the overhead press are stubborn. They're going to take a lot longer than the squat and deadlift. That's why everyone can deadlift the most and squat the most, and the bench and the overhead press are weaker. So 3 factors to consider really are you bulking? So these same people who ask me that, they tell me they're not gaining strength on the bench, the overhead press, most of the time they're trying to be shredded. They're trying to lose fat, and you guys need to understand that you're pretty much self-sabotaging yourself. Those 2 goals are completely different. If you're not a true beginner, you're not going to add significant amounts of strength to your lifts without bulking and eating in a calorie surplus. It's just the fact of the matter. It's unfortunate, but that's how things work when you're drug-free. You're not going to be able to gain a shitload of strength, and especially on your upper body lifts when you're cutting. So know what your goal is. If you're trying to lose fat, then understand that the best thing you can do is just focus on maintaining your strength, because that's what's going to maintain your muscle mass. Apart from that, you should not be wanting to gain strength. That shouldn't be your goal. They're 2 opposite things. So you're basically self-sabotaging yourself if your goal is to gain a lot of strength on your lifts and you're eating in a calorie deficit. So first, understand that you're going to need a bulk if you want to put significant amounts of strength on and be eating in a calorie surplus consistently. Second thing is, are you sleeping enough? Are you resting enough? Too many people are sleeping, 4 or 5 hours a night, and I'm like, dude, how the fuck can you expect to gain significant amounts of strength and lift heavy weights if you're barely sleeping, giving your body a chance to recover and rest? It's just not going to happen. So the next thing, and what I see most often apart from the bulking, is that people are just doing way too much volume and training way too often. So if you guys are doing too much volume, too many sets, too many exercises, training too frequently, don't expect to gain much in the way of strength. Your body only has so many recovery adaptations it can make. So you need to focus your efforts on purely getting strong at the big core compound lifts. If you have too much in your routine, that's diluting your effort from being put into that and getting strong, building strength on your compound lifts, which is what's going to build your physique and build your mass. The secondary exercises are just refiners. So first thing you need to do is make sure that your volume is not too high. And especially if you're out of the beginner stage, guys, I don't even train on a 7-day routine. So I extend my routine to 8 to 9 days, sometimes even 10 days. because when you're training hard, when you're bringing the effort that you should, and you're getting stronger, you're not going to be able to train that often. It's just not going to happen. So if I'm trying to deadlift once every 7 days, that's really pushing it in terms of my recovery. So I deadlift every 9 days, and my consistency is on point within the realms of strength gains. So understand that if you're outside, if you're actually moving some respectable poundage, you're not gonna be able to train that frequently. So extend your training cycles and don't expect to just train, very consistently, train each muscle, each lift every few days and be able to gain significant amounts of strength. You need to give your body that time to recover and make these adaptations. One thing I see that holds a lot of people back is they have too much accessory work. So one thing you can experiment with is cutting back on your secondary work, cutting the sets back, and making sure that the priority is put on the big core compound lifts. So those are really the 3 things that are going to solve most of your problems when it comes to strength plateaus and being able to stay consistent. You need to make sure you're eating enough, being realistic about your goals. If you want to gain strength, you're going to need to be in a calorie surplus. You need to be sleeping enough, 8 to 9 hours per night. And then you need to make sure your frequency is low and your volume is low and the effort is high and the intensity is high, because that's what's going to allow you to consistently put strength on your lifts the fastest. So now that those basic principles are out of the way, and those are typically what are going to prevent most people from making consistent strength gains, here are some tactics that work really well for avoiding strength plateaus and maintaining more consistency in your training with strength gains. So the first thing as well to note is that, largely my training philosophy revolves around having a handful of big core lifts, okay? So let's say that's the squat, the bench press, the deadlift, the overhead press, and the weighted pull-up, and a row, okay? If you have those handful of core movements, you can't expect, especially again, if you're outside of the beginner stage, you can't expect them all to be progressing quickly at the same time. It's just not a realistic expectation. So if your squat and deadlift are climbing, then be happy that your squat and deadlift are climbing. Maybe some of your other exercises are lagging behind at that time, but understand that things move in waves. So sometimes my squat, for example, will be climbing really quickly, but my deadlift may not be going as fast. Maybe my bench may be going a little bit quicker, but maybe my overhead press is not. You guys need to understand things move in waves. If you could just consistently add strength to all of your exercises all the time, it works for periods of time, but as you get deeper and deeper into your training cycles and your routines, it's not going to happen. Sometimes some of your lifts are going to stagnate for a little bit, and that's okay as long as you're gaining strength in 1 or 2 of the big core lifts that you're prioritizing. Then you're gaining muscle, you're gaining strength properly. So don't expect to always have consistent strength gains in all of the key lifts. It largely goes in waves. Sometimes some lifts will be progressing quickly and others may have to take a back seat for a little bit, but it goes in cycles. It will reverse, and then it will be the other way around, and vice versa. That's what you need to accept as well. So the next thing to note, and this is really, really fucking important, and this is something a lot of beginners fail to grasp, is that it's important to practice what's called conservatism. So let's say, I train my big core compound lifts with reverse pyramid training, with a reverse pyramid style. So I hit a heavy top set and then a couple of back off sets, dropping the weight and going for a bit more reps. So let's say my first heavy set, I'm doing bench press for 5 reps, okay? If I hit that 5th rep and I'm unsure that I can get the 6th, there may be a 50-50 chance, I'm gonna leave that rep for the next week. So going for that rep and grinding it out is going to actually probably cause you to lose strength, and that's going to completely throw off your consistency. So you need to hit the fine line, learn how to hit the fine line of really bringing effort, bringing intensity, but not pushing things too hard to the point where there's no room for you to come back stronger next week. So this is actually what I fucked up recently on my bench press, full disclosure. Is I was really, really wanting that personal record. I was like, fuck, I'm gonna get it. So I pushed for that last rep, and I don't do this often, but I didn't get the rep. And then the next workout, my bench press strength went down. I actually lost strength. So that will do a great job of destroying your consistency, is grinding out reps. So if you're not quite sure if you're gonna get the next rep, just leave it. get it next week. There's no rush, guys. There's absolutely no rush to hit personal records. You know, sometimes you get caught up in the moment and whatever happens, but there's no rush, because this lifting, this fitness thing is a lifelong pursuit. Okay, we're in this for the long term. There's no rush to be gaining as much strength as possible. It takes time. Just let it be. Get it next week. Get the personal record next week, and things are gonna go a lot smoother. So practice conservatism. Always do less than more. This is a little quote I made up. It's fucking perfect. Always do less than more and rest more than less. That's all. That right there like sums up a perfect way to maintain consistency in your training. And always, guys, if you don't feel fully recovered, take an extra day or two of rest before you train. Last thing you want to do is go into your training not recovered and, you know, fuck up your consistency. It can destroy the next weeks of progress if you hop into a training session you're not fully recovered from the last session. So that's what I mean. Like, express a lower training frequency. Understand that, you know, it's going to take time to adapt, and sometimes you're gonna be going into a workout and you're not going to be fully recovered. In that case, rest another day or two and then go back when you're sure you're going to hit that personal record. You're going to gain that little bit of strength and poundage, and that's going to be the better route for consistency. So I've done that. I used to be guilty of that all the time, and I stagnated for so long because I would push these crazy grinders, and if you're grinding out a rep, guys, there's not a chance in hell you're going to be able to get stronger the next week. You'll be lucky to maintain your strength, put it that way, on the lift that happens on. You'd be lucky to maintain your strength. More likely than not, you're going to actually lose strength, and it's going to be a shit show, and then you're going to have to redo everything and start from ground zero. So you don't want to be in that position. So always err on the side of conservatism. Always, when you're not sure if you can get that rep, leave it. You'll get it next week because you'll be stronger, and you'll actually give your body a chance to grow back stronger. So that's really important. The next tactic, and this is really cool, is to treat all of your lifts as its own cycle. So, you know, as I said, if the key lifts are the squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, weighted pull up, treat each of those in its own cycle. So let's say I hit a plateau. Let's say I plateaued and I'm doing everything right. And let's say I just plateaued on my bench press for 3 or 4 weeks. If I just could not get even a pound on there with the micro plates or anything, what I would do is I would restart its cycle. So if you treat your training in cycles, this is how it works. So when you're starting a new training cycle, a new routine, you're not just gonna jump right into the full intensity. You're gonna take some time and slowly build your way back up to the lifts you were using previously, your personal bests. So what I would recommend is if you're in that position where, you know, none of the previous tactics worked, what you want to do is drop the weight about 10 to 15%. You want to do a weight reset, drop it 10 to 15%, and then take about 3 weeks to slowly etch your way back up to where you were before, your personal best. Take 3 weeks to get back to there. And more times than not, you'll find that once you get there, once you take your time getting there, after 3 weeks, you'll cross new pound territory, which is really cool. So if you restart its cycle, drop the weight about 10 to 15%, take a few weeks to build back up. Don't rush it, you know, make sure your form's dialed in and you're still training with aggression and intensity. Take a few weeks to get back up to your personal bests, and then you'll find that you'll probably cross into new territory afterwards because you did a reset, you gave your body a chance to kind of relax a little bit, but you're still practicing the lift, and then by the time you get back up there, you're going to probably cross into new poundage territory, which is really cool. So think of your lifts in cycles. That's what I like to do. If I stall and all of the previous things are taken care of, you know, I'm practicing conservatism, I'm eating enough, my training frequency and volume's all dialed in, then I'll just do a weight reset, take some weight off, and then slowly build back up, and then more often than not, I'll reach new pound territory, which is really cool. So those are the best tactics, is to practice conservatism. It's going to make sure your training's consistent. And then if you stall and all of that's taken care of, and you stall for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, then you're going to have to do a reset the cycle. All right, so that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I went quite into depth, but those are the main tactics that you're going to be able to use to maintain consistency in your training and avoid plateaus and break through plateaus. So that should do it for you. If you try the tactics, the weight resets, practicing conservatism, and you still can't gain strength, you're probably falling victim to one of the first 3 guidelines, which is not eating enough, not resting enough, and doing too much. So first experiment with the the calories. Make sure you're actually eating enough. Make sure you are resting enough, sleeping enough, and then make sure you're not doing too much volume and you're not training too often. Those are the first three. And then you can experiment with the applying the conservatism, adding the micro plates instead of trying to make these big jumps, and be patient. And then apply the weight resets, where you take 10 to 15% of the weight off of your current best when you're plateaued, and then take a few weeks to build back up, and more often than not, you're going to cross over into new pound territory. Those are the tactics, and most of all, be patient, guys. Building a great natural physique takes time. Gaining significant amounts of strength takes time, so just be patient. You'll get there, guys. The worst thing to do is to try and add so much weight, and then you just stagnates. I know so many people like that. They try to add too much weight, but then in the pursuit of adding so much strength, they stay weak. But if you just make little tiny improvements, it doesn't really make a difference right away, but over time, it compounds like crazy. So keep that in mind. So if you guys enjoyed this, let me know. Subscribe, drop a like, check out my blog and my website, hop on my newsletter for exclusive content, stay updated with Polarity Fitness, and we shall talk soon. Peace.